The Milky Way had been reduced to ashes of its former glory. Once a spiraling wonder of stellar nurseries and vibrant planetary systems. Now vast sectors lay barren, cosmic graveyards marking the aftermath of the 100 Stars War. The victorious Atroxus Empire ruled with brutal efficiency, their battleships casting long shadows over once independent worlds. Their philosophy was simple: might made right, and the strong dictated the future of the galaxy. In this smoldering galaxy, the small independent research station Nebula Forge floated at the edge of the Sargass Nebula, a forgotten outpost on the periphery of imperial interest. Its existence was tolerated only because its research appeared harmless, studies of stellar formation that the warlords of Atroxus deemed irrelevant to their military ambitions. Dr. Ariel Lysander peered through the observation dome, her reflection ghosting against the backdrop of swirling cosmic gases. At 34, her face showed the premature lines of someone who had witnessed too much destruction. Her dark hair was pulled back in a functional knot, and her gray eyes reflected the distant stars she had studied her entire adult life. As the station's leading energy physicist, she had been granted this remote sanctuary to continue her work after her home planet had been subjugated. "Nix, adjust the quantum resonance scanners to focus on grid sector 9 Alpha," she instructed, her voice steady despite the fatigue of a 20-hour work shift. The station's artificial intelligence materialized as a shimmer of blue light beside her. "Adjusting scanners. Dr. Lysander, may I point out that you have exceeded recommended research periods by 426 minutes. Your cognitive efficiency is projected to decline by 17% if you continue without rest." Ariel smiled wearily at the AI's concern. "Some things can't wait for optimal cognitive efficiency. Nix, the Independence Alliance needs this breakthrough." Her fingers danced across holographic displays, manipulating equations that would seem incomprehensible to most humans. For 3 years, she had worked on what she simply called Star Core, a theoretical energy source that could harness the power of stellar nucleosynthesis on a controlled scale. The Empire believed she was merely studying stellar physics. In reality, she was building the foundation for something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The door to the observation deck slid open with a pneumatic hiss, and Commander Elias Croix entered. His military bearing remained evident despite the scientist's uniform he now wore as cover. As the liaison between the research station and the resistance cells scattered across neighboring systems, he carried the burden of coordinating their desperate efforts. "Progress report?" he asked without preamble, his voice low despite the secure room. Ariel gestured to the swirling simulation before them. "The containment field theory is sound. We can create a reaction that mimics stellar fusion, but miniaturized and controlled." She hesitated, then added, "The power output would be unprecedented. Enough to power our shield generators? Our settlements need protection from the Empire's bombardments." "Elias," she said, using his first name to emphasize the gravity of her next words. "This could power an entire fleet, or it could become something else entirely." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "A weapon? Energy is neutral. Its application determines whether it heals or destroys." Her expression hardened. "And I've designed it to be adaptable." Commander Croix ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "The Alliance Council needs to know about this potential. But we must be careful. Imperial inspections have increased in the sector. There are rumors that the Cosmic Warlord himself might be conducting evaluations of research facilities." Ariel's hands stilled over her console. "Kaylor Jah, here?" The name alone was enough to send a chill through the station. Kaylor Jah had earned his title Cosmic Warlord through the systematic destruction of rebellious star systems. His battleship, the Dominion, was a mobile planet-sized fortress that had become the stuff of nightmares throughout the galaxy. "Just rumors for now," Croix assured her. "But accelerate your timetable. There's even a chance." A sharp alarm cut through their conversation, causing both to stiffen. Nix's form flickered urgently. Alert, Imperial vessel approaching. Configuration matches Dominion-class Battlestar. Estimated arrival, 17 minutes. The blood drained from Ariel's face. It's not a rumor. Lock down all sensitive research, Croix ordered, already moving toward the communication array. I'll alert our operatives to go dark. Ariel's fingers flew across the interface, encrypting data and securing it in quantum vaults that would, theoretically, be impervious to Imperial decryption. Nix, initiate Protocol Stardust. Authorization Lysander Omega-7. Protocol Stardust initiated. The AI confirmed. All experimental data regarding Project Star Core is being segmented and hidden within standard stellar observation records. As the minutes ticked by, Ariel changed from her lab attire into the standard gray uniform of an Imperial-sanctioned researcher. The facade was crucial, a small research station studying stellar formation. Nothing more. The lie had protected them thus far. The station shuddered as massive gravitational fields disrupted its orbit. Through the observation dome, the Imperial Battlestar Dominion came into view, eclipsing the stars behind it. It wasn't merely a ship. It was an artificial world, bristling with weapons that could reduce planets to molten slag. Its hull bore the scars of 100 victories, each one representing a civilization brought to heel. They're initiating docking procedures, Nix announced. Multiple life forms detected aboard approaching shuttles. Weapon signatures identified. Ariel squared her shoulders. Standard inspection protocols. Everyone, remember your cover stories. Her voice carried a calm she did not feel as she addressed the station's personnel through the comm system. The main airlock cycled open 40 minutes later, and the station was invaded not by common Imperial troops but by elite guards in obsidian armor. They formed a passage of living darkness, and through this corridor strode the figure that had haunted the nightmares of a galaxy. Kaylor Jah stood 2 meters tall, his physique enhanced by both genetics and technology. His skin had the pale blue tint of those born in the low-gravity worlds of the Atroxus core systems. A network of silver implants traced patterns across his exposed scalp and temple, interfacing with his nervous system to give him enhanced control over his flagship and forces. He wore armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, adorned with symbols of rank that declared his status as second only to the Emperor himself. But it was his eyes that truly revealed his nature. Cold, calculating, and utterly without mercy. They surveyed the station's gathering personnel like a predator assessing which prey to devour first. "This is Nebula Forge Station," he stated, rather than asked, his voice surprisingly soft, yet carrying an undercurrent of absolute authority. "I find myself curious about the Empire's investment in stellar research that has yielded no practical military applications in 3 years. Commander Croix stepped forward, maintaining his cover as the station's administrative head. "Lord Jah, we are honored by your presence. Our focus has been fundamental stellar physics, as authorized by Imperial Science Directive 5291. The knowledge gained here furthers our understanding of energy production throughout the Empire." Kaylor's gaze slid past him, settling on Ariel. "And you would be Dr. Lysander, the station's chief researcher. Your reputation precedes you, brilliant but politically naive. The Empire allowed you to continue your work here rather than execute you after your homeworld's rebellion because your mind was deemed too valuable to waste." Ariel met his gaze with a steady one of her own. "The Empire values knowledge. I provide knowledge about stars." "Indeed." The Warlord's lips curved in what might have been a smile on a human face, but on his, it resembled a predator baring its teeth. "Show me this knowledge." What followed was an inspection designed to intimidate as much as to evaluate. Kaylor Jah's presence filled each laboratory and research bay he entered, his guards scanning everything for signs of treachery. Ariel guided him through carefully prepared demonstrations of their official research, stellar composition analysis, fusion reaction studies, radiation mapping of the Sargas Nebula. When they reached her primary lab, she presented holographic models of standard stellar evolution, explaining the scientific value of understanding energy transfer in various types of stars. Throughout her presentation, the Warlord remained silent, watching her with unsettling intensity. "Fascinating," he finally said, circling the holographic star she had conjured. "But I sense there is more. Your mind clearly exceeds the pedestrian research I've been shown." Ariel's pulse quickened, but her expression remained neutral. "All research has potential applications beyond its immediate focus. Understanding stellar energy could lead to improved reactor designs for Imperial vessels." "Could it?" Kaelor reached out, his fingers passing through the holographic star, disrupting its perfect form. "Or perhaps weapons. The Empire is not blind to the theoretical potential of stellar energy manipulation. Dr. Lysander, theory and application are separated by vast technological gulfs," she replied carefully. "We are decades away from any practical implementation of advanced stellar energy concepts." The laugh that escaped him was cold and utterly devoid of humor. It echoed through the laboratory, causing several researchers to flinch involuntarily. "How delightfully harmless you make your work sound," he said, the mockery evident in his tone. "The brilliant physicist whose research poses no threat, whose equations are mere academic exercises." He stepped closer to her, close enough that she could feel the chill emanating from his armor. "Do you take me for a fool, Doctor?" Before she could respond, he gestured to one of his officers. "Lieutenant Kova, initiate a Level 5 data sweep of all systems." A tall woman with sharp features and close-cropped silver hair stepped forward. Lieutenant Saren Kova's reputation as Kaelor's most efficient enforcer was well known throughout the sector. Her expression betrayed nothing as she nodded. "It will be done, my lord." "This station operates under Imperial Science mandate," Commander Croix objected. "Our data is already subject to regular review by the Imperial Science Council. The Science Council answers to the military during times of insurrection," Kaelor responded dismissively. "And make no mistake, Commander, we are still extinguishing the embers of rebellion throughout this sector." Ariel watched as Imperial technicians began accessing their systems, bypassing security protocols with Imperial override codes. Nyx's holographic form flickered briefly, an indication that the AI was enacting deeper security measures to protect their most sensitive data. "I have nothing to hide," Ariel stated with calculated defiance. "My research serves the advancement of knowledge." Kaelor's laugh returned, louder this time. "Nothing to hide. Every human hides something. Dr. Lysander, the question is merely one of significance." He turned away from her, addressing the room at large. "This station is now under direct Imperial oversight. All research will be suspended pending full evaluation. Dr. Lysander will accompany me to the Dominion for further questioning regarding her work." The room fell silent. Being summoned to the Dominion was effectively a death sentence, or worse, a one-way journey to the Imperial interrogation facilities. "On what grounds?" Ariel demanded, her scientific calm finally cracking. "Suspicion of knowledge dangerous to Imperial security," Kaelor replied casually. "Your mind harbors concepts that could threaten stability if developed incorrectly. Consider it a compliment. Doctor, few scientists are deemed important enough to warrant my personal attention." Commander Croix stepped forward. "As administrative head of this station, I protest this action. Dr. Lysander's research is vital to our ongoing stellar studies." The Warlord didn't even look at him as he responded. "Noted and rejected." He turned to Lieutenant Kova. "Prepare Dr. Lysander for transport in 2 hours. Secure all research materials for transfer to Imperial Science Division." As Kaelor strode from the laboratory, his guards following in perfect formation, Ariel exchanged a brief, desperate glance with Croix. They had prepared for Imperial inspections, but not for this, not for the personal interest of the cosmic warlord himself. Once the Imperial forces had temporarily withdrawn to prepare for the data transfer, Ariel hurried to her private quarters, Commander Croix following close behind. "This is catastrophic," he muttered once the door sealed behind them. "If they take you to the Dominion, they won't find anything," Ariel interrupted, her voice low. "Nyx has secured the critical star core data using quantum encryption protocols. They'll find enough stellar research to justify our existence. Nothing more." "That doesn't help you," Croix pointed out. "Once on the Dominion, they'll use neural probes. No human mind can withstand those. They'll extract everything you know." Ariel paced the small confines of her quarters. "Then I need to give them something so valuable they won't risk damaging my mind with invasive probes." She stopped suddenly, her eyes lighting with a dangerous idea. "Or I need to make them believe I'm cooperating willingly." "What are you suggesting?" She lowered her voice further. "The Star Core project is further along than I've admitted even to the Alliance Council. The theoretical framework is complete, with the right facilities." She hesitated. "The Dominion's fusion reactors are the most advanced in the galaxy." Croix stared at her in dawning horror. "You can't be serious. You want to develop the technology on the Dominion itself, under Kylor Jar's nose? Not develop, demonstrate." Her expression hardened with resolve. "I'll need you to contact our operatives. There's a specific component I'll need smuggled aboard during the transfer, a modified antimatter containment cell, disguised as standard research equipment." "Ariel, this is suicide." "Perhaps. But if I'm going to die anyway, I'd rather it serve a purpose." She placed a hand on his arm. "The Star Core isn't just an energy source. Elias, in the right configuration, with enough power behind it." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "A weapon. A star bomb," she corrected. "Capable of initiating a chain reaction similar to a supernova, but controlled and directed." Croix ran a hand over his face. "Even if we could smuggle the component to you, the risk is unimaginable. One miscalculation would result in my death." She finished for him. A fate already likely, but success would cripple the Empire's military command structure in one stroke. She turned to the small window that offered a view of the massive battle star looming outside. "They laughed at my research, dismissed it as harmless theoretical physics. Let's show them how wrong they are." 2 hours later, Dr. Ariel Lysander was escorted from Nebula Forge to an Imperial shuttle. She carried only a small case of personal items and data crystals, all of which had been thoroughly scanned and approved by Imperial security. As the shuttle detached from the research station and accelerated toward the enormous bulk of the Dominion, she caught a final glimpse of her home for the past 3 years, perhaps the last place in the galaxy where she had felt some measure of freedom. Commander Croix watched from the observation deck as the shuttle disappeared into one of the Dominion's countless hangar bays. Beside him, the holographic form of Nyx flickered with uncharacteristic agitation. "Commander, I have detected unusual communications among the Resistance network," the AI reported quietly. "Operation Stardust appears to have been accelerated without proper authorization." "Not without authorization," Croix corrected. "Just without yours." He turned away from the viewport. "Begin evacuation preparations. Minimum personnel, maximum deniability. If anyone asks, we're rotating staff for Imperial evaluation. The probability of Dr. Lysander's survival is below acceptable parameters," Nyx observed. "I calculate less than 12% chance of successful extraction." Croix's expression hardened. "She's not planning on extraction. Nyx, she's planning on becoming the extraction." The AI's holographic form flickered as it processed this statement. "I do not understand." "You will," Croix replied grimly. "When the stars begin to burn." The Dominion was a world unto itself, a mobile fortress housing over 2 million Imperial personnel. Its interior spaces stretched for kilometers, organized into strictly controlled sectors serving military, research, administrative, and life support functions. As Ariel was led through its cavernous corridors, she noted the brutal efficiency of its design. Nothing existed without purpose. Nothing survived without function. Her quarters, or cell, more accurately, were sparse but not uncomfortable. A sleeping platform, sanitation unit, work terminal with limited access, and observation port offering a view of endless stars. The door sealed behind her with a finality that sent a shiver down her spine. Your presence is required in Laboratory Complex Alpha in 2 hours. The automated system informed her. Appropriate attire will be provided. Deviation from assigned routes will result in immediate disciplinary action. Alone, for the first time since her capture. Ariel allowed herself a moment of doubt. The plan was desperate, bordering on suicidal. Even if everything went perfectly, if the Resistance could smuggle the necessary component aboard, if she could integrate it into the Imperial systems without detection, if she could calculate the precise equations needed for a controlled reaction, the chances of survival were infinitesimal. She moved to the observation port, placing her palm against the transparent material that separated her from the vacuum of space. Somewhere out there. Countless worlds suffered under Imperial rule, entire civilizations reduced to servitude, their resources stripped to fuel the ever-expanding Atroxus war machine. This is bigger than one life, she whispered to herself. Bigger than one star. When the door slid open, 2 hours later, she had composed herself once more into the calm, analytical scientist the Empire expected. The Imperial uniform provided for her was charcoal gray with subtle blue piping indicating her status as a scientific asset. It fit perfectly, an unsettling reminder of how thoroughly they had studied her. Lieutenant Serenkova waited outside, her posture rigid and expression unreadable. Dr. Lysander, you will follow me to the laboratory complex. You will speak only when addressed directly by Lord Jar or myself. You will not deviate from the designated path. Is this understood? Perfectly, Lieutenant, Ariel replied with deliberate meekness. Survival now depended on appearing cooperative, even eager to please. The laboratory complex was a testament to Imperial technological superiority. Equipment that would have been priceless treasures on independent worlds stood in neat rows, attended by scientists who worked with the focused intensity of those who knew failure meant death. The air hummed with power from the massive reactors that served as the Battlestar's heart. Kailor Jar waited at the center of this technological temple, examining holographic displays of what appeared to be stellar formation data, her data, stolen from Nebula Forge. He dismissed them with a casual wave as she approached. Dr. Lysander, welcome to a proper research facility. His tone carried the same mocking quality she had heard before. I trust you find it adequate for your stellar studies. Ariel forced herself to nod. It's impressive, Lord Jar. Impressive? He laughed that cold laugh again. It is the pinnacle of human achievement, the culmination of technologies seized from 100 conquered worlds. Here, we bend the fundamental forces of the universe to Imperial will. He gestured around them. And now, you will do the same. I'm a theoretical physicist, she began cautiously. My work. Your work, he interrupted, has focused on harnessing stellar energy processes on a controlled scale. Do not insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise. Your encryption was impressive but ultimately futile. We found fragments, enough to understand the direction, if not the details. Ariel's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. They had discovered something, but not everything. Not the critical equations that would make the star core viable. Then you understand the potential applications, she said carefully. Potential? Kailor's expression darkened. I understand that you believed your research could somehow benefit the pitiful Resistance. That you thought yourself clever enough to hide your true purpose behind academic papers on stellar physics. He stepped closer, towering over her. What I don't understand, Doctor, is why a mind as brilliant as yours would waste itself on a lost cause. The rebellion is broken. The Independent Alliance is a dying dream. Yet you persist in this delusion that your science could change the inevitable course of history. For a moment, Ariel said nothing. Then, making a calculated decision, she lifted her chin to meet his gaze directly. Because science is the only force in this galaxy more powerful than your empire, she said quietly. Stars burned before humans existed, and they will burn long after your empire is dust. I study the eternal. Lord Jah, what do you command but the temporary? A dangerous silence followed her words. Around them, Imperial scientists froze at their stations, awaiting the Warlord's reaction to such defiance. To everyone's surprise, Kaylor Jah smiled, a genuine expression of amusement that transformed his face into something almost human. Fascinating. You actually believe that? He turned away, addressing Lieutenant Kova. Perhaps there is more value here than I anticipated. Prepare the primary research bay for a practical demonstration. A demonstration? Ariel questioned. Yes, Dr. Lysander. You will show me exactly what your star core can do. He turned back to her, the smile gone, replaced by cold calculation. Not the watered-down version you plan to share with your resistance friends. The true potential. You will have access to all necessary equipment and data. You will have 3 days. And if I refuse, then we return to less pleasant methods of extraction. His voice lowered. And I begin with your former colleagues at Nebula Forge, one by one, until either you cooperate or they are all dead. Your choice. Ariel knew it was no bluff. The cosmic warlord had built his reputation on such calculated cruelties. I'll need certain equipment transferred from my station, specialized components that— Already arranged, he interrupted. Your equipment is being transported as we speak. Lieutenant Kova will oversee the process personally to ensure nothing is overlooked. Lieutenant Kova stepped forward. The first shipment arrived an hour ago. My lord, it awaits inspection in Security Bay 7. Excellent. See that Dr. Lysander receives everything she requires. Kaylor turned his attention back to Ariel. 3 days. Doctor, show me this power you believe exceeds my empire. As he strode away, flanked by his guards, Ariel fought to control her racing thoughts. The plan was unfolding faster than anticipated. If the Resistance had succeeded in hiding the modified antimatter containment cell among her equipment, she might actually have a chance to execute her desperate strategy. Lieutenant Kova gestured toward the exit. This way. Doctor, I will escort you to inspect your equipment. As they walked through the Dominion's massive corridors, Ariel studied the lieutenant from the corner of her eye, unlike most of Kaylor's officers, who displayed open contempt for prisoners. Kova maintained a professional detachment that bordered on respect. You've served the cosmic warlord for a long time, Ariel ventured. Testing boundaries. Save your attempts at psychological manipulation, Kova replied without looking at her. I am not your ally or your confidant. I wasn't attempting either, merely making an observation. Then observe in silence. My duty is to deliver you to Security Bay 7, not to engage in conversation. They passed through multiple security checkpoints, each requiring Kova's biometric authorization. The deeper they moved into the battle star, the more Ariel realized the true scale of the Imperial war machine. Entire sections were dedicated to weapon systems that could obliterate planets. Manufacturing complexes produced enough military equipment to outfit armies. And everywhere, the ever-present surveillance of Imperial security systems. Security Bay 7 was a sterile, brightly lit chamber where her equipment from Nebula Forge had been arranged for inspection. Imperial security officers stood guard, while technicians systematically scanned each component for hidden weapons or communication devices. "Your personal effects have been cleared," Lieutenant Kova informed her. "The research equipment requires more thorough evaluation." Ariel surveyed the collection of devices and storage units. Most were standard research tools, spectrographic analyzers, quantum field generators, data storage crystals. Her eyes settled on an unassuming gray cylinder approximately 30 centimeters in length, a standard containment vessel used for volatile research materials. "That's a delicate isotope stabilizer," she said, pointing to the cylinder. "It requires specific handling protocols." Kova signaled to a technician. "Explain." "The interior contains a suspended magnetic field that prevents certain unstable isotopes from degrading during transport," Ariel explained, keeping her voice professionally bland. "Disruption of the field could render months of stellar material collection useless." The technician ran a scanner over the cylinder, frowning at the readings. "There's a complex electromagnetic signature, but no detectable weapons components or communications technology." "Check it against the manifest," Kova ordered. "Item ST-479 Isotope Containment Vessel. Listed as essential research equipment for stellar nucleosynthesis studies," the technician confirmed after consulting his datapad. Kova studied Ariel's face for a moment, searching for signs of deception, finding none. She nodded curtly. "Have all equipment transferred to Research Bay 12, once inspection is complete." To Ariel, she added, "You will begin work immediately." Research Bay 12 proved to be a massive laboratory space with direct access to one of the Dominion's auxiliary reactor systems, exactly what Ariel needed for her plan. As Imperial technicians arranged her equipment according to her specifications, she began drafting the preliminary equations for the Star Core demonstration on the holographic displays. Over the next 26 hours, she worked with the focused intensity that had defined her career, aware of the constant surveillance but projecting only scientific dedication. The equations she displayed were genuine, the theoretical framework for harnessing stellar energy, but deliberately incomplete. Key variables were altered just enough to prevent the process from reaching critical mass if the Imperial scientists attempted to replicate her work independently. Lieutenant Kova maintained a constant presence, observing her work with an intensity that suggested more than mere duty. Occasionally, the lieutenant would ask surprisingly insightful questions about stellar physics, revealing an unexpected depth of scientific knowledge. "You understand these concepts better than most Imperial officers," Ariel noted during a brief rest period. Kova's expression remained impassive. "The Empire values knowledge when it serves strength. I serve both. And when knowledge threatens strength, then knowledge must be controlled." Kova studied the equations floating before them. "Is that not what you're attempting with your Star Core? To control the uncontrollable?" Ariel considered her response carefully. "To harness, not control. There's a difference." "A semantic distinction without practical meaning," Kova replied. "Power is power, regardless of how poetically one describes its acquisition." Their philosophical debate was interrupted by the arrival of Kylor Jar, who swept into the laboratory with his customary air of absolute authority. Imperial scientists snapped to attention, while Ariel continued her calculations with deliberate focus. "Progress report," he demanded, coming to stand beside her holographic display. "The theoretical framework is complete," Ariel replied, gesturing to the swirling equations. "I'm now calculating the precise energy requirements for a controlled demonstration using your auxiliary reactor." Kayla studied the equations with surprising comprehension. "You've advanced the work considerably since your time at Nebula Forge." "Access to proper equipment makes a difference," she admitted. It wasn't a lie. The Imperial technology surrounding her was far superior to what she had worked with for years. "And the practical application," he pressed. "When can I expect to see this power you claim exceeds my empire?" "Tomorrow," she promised. I need 12 more hours to finalize the containment protocols and calibrate the isotope stabilizer. She indicated the gray cylinder that had been positioned near the reactor access port. Lieutenant Kova will continue to monitor your work, Kaylor stated. I expect to be impressed, Dr. Lysander, for your sake, and for the sake of your former colleagues. After he departed, Ariel returned to her calculations with renewed urgency. The plan had multiple failure points, each potentially fatal. The modified containment cell, which actually housed not isotopes but a specialized antimatter capsule, needed to be integrated with the Dominion's reactor systems without triggering security protocols. The timing had to be precise, the energy flow perfectly calibrated. One miscalculation would result in premature detonation, killing her before accomplishing anything meaningful. Too much delay, and Imperial security might discover the true nature of her work. As the hours passed, she became aware of subtle changes in the Battlestar's operations. Announcements of troop deployments echoed through the communication system. Security personnel moved with increased urgency through the corridors. Something was happening beyond the confines of her laboratory. The resistance cells in the Sargas sector have coordinated attacks on 3 Imperial outposts, Lieutenant Kova informed her when she inquired. A futile gesture, but one that requires response. Ariel kept her expression neutral, but internally, her mind raced. The resistance was creating a distraction, drawing Imperial forces away from the Dominion itself. It was part of the plan. A plan she had only partially shared with Commander Kwa before her capture. How unfortunate, she murmured, returning to her work. Wasted lives. Kova studied her for a moment. You don't believe that. What I believe is irrelevant, Lieutenant. Only the science matters now. The final phase of preparation began 6 hours later. With Imperial authorization, Ariel established a direct connection between her equipment and the auxiliary reactor. The modified containment cell, the heart of her plan, was integrated into the power regulation system, ostensibly to stabilize the energy flow during the demonstration. The star core functions by creating a microscopic environment that replicates the conditions at the center of a star, she explained to the gathered Imperial scientists and officers. Kaylor Jha stood at the front, his cold eyes fixed on the humming equipment. By precisely controlling these conditions, we can harness the energy produced by stellar nucleosynthesis without the mass of an actual star. She activated the holographic display, showing a simulation of the process. The energy output begins small, equivalent to a standard fusion reactor, but as the reaction stabilizes, it grows exponentially, creating a self-sustaining energy source that could power an entire fleet indefinitely. Or weapon systems of unprecedented power, Kaylor added, making no attempt to hide his true interest. Precisely, Ariel nodded, playing to his expectations. The energy could be directed and focused for military applications that would make conventional planetary bombardment obsolete. The Warlord smiled his predatory smile. Begin the demonstration. Ariel took a deep breath, centering herself for what might be her final act. Her fingers danced across the control interface, initiating the startup sequence. Around them, the reactor systems began to hum at a higher frequency as power flowed into the experimental apparatus. Initial containment field established, she announced. Beginning primary sequence. The modified container began to glow with an inner light, pulsing with increasing intensity. Holographic readouts displayed energy levels climbing steadily, exactly as they should in a controlled demonstration. Remarkable, one of the Imperial scientists murmured, watching the readings with professional appreciation. The energy density is orders of magnitude beyond standard fusion. Kaylor stepped closer, his eyes reflecting the pulsing light. How soon until full capacity? The process requires precise calibration, Ariel replied, her hands continuing their dance across the controls. Rushing would risk containment failure. What she didn't say, what none of the Imperial scientists had yet realized, was that containment failure was precisely her goal. The modified cell wasn't designed to contain the reaction, but to channel it directly into the Dominion's reactor core, creating a cascading failure that would trigger a chain reaction throughout the massive battle star. Phase 2 initiation, she announced, entering a complex sequence of commands. The pulsing light intensified, taking on a blue-white quality reminiscent of a young, hot star. Energy readings continued to climb, approaching levels that would soon trigger automated safety protocols. Lieutenant Kova frowned, studying the secondary displays. These power fluctuations appear unstable. A normal part of the calibration process, Ariel assured her, maintaining her calm facade while internally counting down to the point of no return. 3 minutes until the reaction would become self-sustaining. 2 minutes until it would be impossible to shut down without specialized equipment not present on the Dominion. An alarm suddenly blared throughout the laboratory, causing several Imperial scientists to step back from the apparatus. "Reactor safety protocols have engaged," an automated voice announced. "Anomalous energy signature detected. Initiating emergency shutdown." "Override," Kaelor commanded immediately. "Continue the demonstration." "My lord," one of the senior scientists protested, "the readings suggest potential instability in the containment field. Standard protocol requires—" "I am aware of Imperial protocol." Kaelor cut him off coldly. "And I choose to override it. The demonstration will continue." Ariel concealed her relief. The Warlord's arrogance and hunger for power were playing directly into her plan. As the override codes were entered, she subtly adjusted the final parameters, ensuring the reaction would accelerate beyond control at precisely the right moment. "Approaching peak efficiency," she announced. "Star core activation in 30 seconds." The laboratory had fallen silent except for the humming of equipment and the steady countdown of Ariel's voice. The blue-white light had become almost painful to look at directly, casting harsh shadows throughout the space. 20 seconds. Lieutenant Kova had moved closer to the control panel, her expression troubled as she studied the rapidly changing readings. "These patterns don't match your theoretical models, Dr. Lysander." 15 seconds. "Practical application often differs from theory." "Lieutenant?" Ariel replied smoothly. "The principles remain sound." 10 seconds. Kaelor Jar stood transfixed by the pulsing light, his expression one of naked hunger for the power it represented. "At last," he murmured, "a weapon worthy of the Empire." 5 seconds. Ariel's fingers entered the final command sequence. Not to stabilize the reaction as the observers believed, but to direct its full force into the Battlestar's primary reactor systems. Star core activated. The modified container erupted with blinding light as the antimatter core breached its containment, releasing energy directly into the auxiliary reactor. Alarms blared throughout the laboratory as emergency systems detected the catastrophic power surge. "What's happening?" Kaelor demanded, his voice rising above the chaos. "Stabilize the reaction." "I can't," Ariel replied, finally allowing her true purpose to show in her expression. It was never meant to be stable. Understanding dawned in the Warlord's eyes, followed quickly by fury. "You've sabotaged the reactor. Guards, arrest her immediately." But it was already too late. The energy surge had cascaded through the Dominion's power distribution network, overloading safety systems and triggering secondary reactions throughout the massive vessel. Emergency bulkheads began slamming down as automated systems attempted to contain the spreading disaster. "You've killed us all," Kaelor snarled, grabbing Ariel by the throat. "Whatever you hope to accomplish, you'll die here with us." "Some things are worth dying for," she managed to say despite his crushing grip. "Freedom is one of them." Before he could respond, Lieutenant Kova appeared beside them, her sidearm drawn. To Ariel's shock, the weapon was pointed not at her, but at Kaelor Jar. "Release her," Kova ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. Kaelor's expression shifted from rage to disbelief. "You? A traitor?" Not a traitor to humanity, Kova replied, only to tyranny. She fired a precise shot that struck his shoulder, causing him to release Ariel and stagger backward. The laboratory was emptying. Imperial personnel fled the imminent disaster. Alarms throughout the Battlestar had reached a fever pitch, and the deck beneath them had begun to vibrate with the strain of containing the growing chain reaction. "We have 3 minutes before the main reactor goes critical," Kova informed Ariel, helping her to her feet. "Less if the antimatter reaction spreads faster than projected." "You knew?" Ariel gasped, struggling to understand this unexpected development. "I suspected. The Alliance has more allies than you realize, even here in the heart of the Empire." Kova was already moving toward a secondary exit, pulling Ariel with her. "There's an escape pod reserved for high-ranking officers 2 levels down. If we hurry." A roar of pure rage interrupted her as Kailor Jar launched himself at them, seemingly oblivious to his injury. He collided with both women, sending them crashing into the control panels. Kova's weapon skittered across the floor, out of reach. "If I die, you die with me," he snarled, his enhanced strength allowing him to lift Ariel by her throat once more. "Your rebellion dies here." Kova struck him from behind with a piece of broken equipment, causing him to drop Ariel again. "Run!" she shouted. "Get to Level C, Section 42. They're waiting." Ariel hesitated only a moment before racing for the exit. Behind her, she heard the sounds of struggle as Lieutenant Kova engaged the cosmic Warlord in combat that neither might survive. The corridors of the Dominion had descended into chaos. Emergency lighting bathed everything in pulsing red as crew members rushed toward escape pods and shuttles. The massive Battlestar's automated voice calmly announced catastrophic system failures throughout all sectors, recommending immediate evacuation. Ariel fought her way through panicked crowds, using her knowledge of the Battlestar's layout, studied meticulously during her captivity, to navigate toward the rendezvous point Kova had indicated. Twice she was forced to hide as Imperial security forces rushed past, still attempting to maintain order even as their world collapsed around them. Level C. Section 42 proved to be a small shuttle bay reserved for covert operations. As she entered, the bay appeared empty except for a single stealth shuttle, a black, angular vessel designed for silent running through enemy territory. "Identify yourself," a disembodied voice demanded as she approached the shuttle. "Dr. Ariel Lysander," she replied, breathing heavily from her flight through the Battlestar. "I was told you were waiting." The shuttle's entry ramp descended, revealing Commander Croix, armed and wearing the uniform of an Imperial communications officer. "Cutting it rather close, wouldn't you say?" he remarked with grim humor. "Elias, how—" "No time," he cut her off, pulling her aboard. "This whole place is about to become a new stellar nursery, courtesy of your Star Corps." As the shuttle's ramp closed behind them, Ariel caught a final glimpse of the Dominion's interior, the Empire's greatest Battlestar, now beginning to tear itself apart from within. Somewhere in that chaos was Lieutenant Kova, who had revealed herself as an Alliance operative at the critical moment. "Saren," she said suddenly, "we have to wait for Lieutenant Kova." Croix's expression turned somber. "Lieutenant Kova's mission was to ensure you escaped. She never planned to leave the Dominion." "But—" "She volunteered, Ariel. She knew what it meant." He guided her to a seat as the shuttle's engines hummed to life. "Her last act was to initiate the civilian evacuation protocols. Thousands of non-combatants will escape because of her." The stealth shuttle detached from the dying Battlestar, its advanced systems rendering it nearly invisible to the Imperial vessels frantically maneuvering around the Dominion. Through the viewport, Ariel watched as the massive structure began to break apart, energy discharges erupting from its core sectors. "How long?" Croix asked quietly. "Seconds," she replied, her voice equally soft. "The antimatter reaction should reach the main reactor. Now." As if responding to her words, the center of the Dominion erupted in a blinding flash of light. The explosion expanded outward at incredible speed, consuming the battle star from within. Secondary explosions followed as weapon systems and fuel stores detonated, adding to the cataclysm. What had been the mightiest vessel in the Imperial fleet became, for a brief, terrible moment, as bright as a newborn star. The shock wave spread outward, catching several nearby Imperial ships that had failed to achieve safe distance, reducing them to fragments. Ariel watched in silence, her expression a complex mixture of horror and vindication. She had just killed thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of Imperial personnel. Among them, the cosmic Warlord himself, architect of so much suffering throughout the galaxy. The mathematical equations that had been her life's work had become an instrument of both destruction and liberation. "The Alliance fleets are moving in," Croix informed her, monitoring communications. With the Dominion destroyed and Kahlor-Jar eliminated, the Imperial command structure in this sector has collapsed. They're already beginning to retreat from contested systems. The shuttle accelerated away from the expanding debris field, its course set for the rendezvous point where the main Alliance fleet waited. As the distance increased, the light of the explosion dimmed, eventually becoming just another bright spot against the backdrop of stars. "Was it worth it?" Ariel asked softly, not really expecting an answer. Croix considered for a long moment before responding. "Ask the worlds that will now know freedom. Ask the children who will grow up without Imperial boots on their necks." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "One act of destruction to end 1,000. I think history will judge it worth the cost." 3 weeks later, Ariel stood at the observation dome of the Alliance flagship Resilience, watching as representatives from 24 formerly subjugated worlds signed the new Star Accord. The document established not only a mutual defense pact against Imperial retaliation, but also strict protocols governing the use of stellar energy weapons. The destruction of the Dominion and death of Kahlor-Jar had indeed shattered Imperial control throughout the Sargas sector. Without their feared Warlord and flagship, Imperial forces had retreated to core territories, abandoning outposts and occupied worlds in their haste to consolidate remaining strength. Commander Croix, now Admiral Croix following battlefield promotion, joined her at the viewport. "The Imperial propagandists are calling you the Supernova Witch," he informed her with a hint of amusement. "Apparently, you're to be feared more than any Alliance fleet." "And what does the Alliance call me?" she asked, her gaze still fixed on the diplomatic proceedings below. "Hero, mostly, though Star Killer has gained some popularity among the fighter squadrons." His expression sobered. "The Science Council wants to speak with you about the Star Core technology. There are concerns about weaponizing stellar physics on such a scale." Ariel nodded slowly. "As there should be. What I created was never meant to exist beyond that single moment. Some knowledge is too dangerous to preserve. Can you truly erase it from every database, every record?" He gestured around them. "From your own mind?" "No," she admitted. "But I can ensure it's never used again." She turned to face him fully. "The new Star Accord includes provisions for a research directive under Alliance oversight. I've requested leadership of a project to develop defensive applications of stellar energy, shields, sustainable power sources, terraforming technologies, ways to build rather than destroy." Croix studied her face, noting the new lines etched by stress and grief. "And the Empire? They'll come back eventually, with new warlords and new battle stars. Perhaps, but they'll find us stronger, united." She turned back to the viewport, where the swirling gases of the Sargas Nebula created patterns of light and shadow. In the distance, a faint glow marked the expanding remnants of what had once been the Dominion, now a newborn nebula that astronomers had already named Liberation's Light. "We'll be ready," she continued softly. "Not with supernova bombs, but with something far more powerful." "And what's that?" knowledge freely shared, worlds working together, the very things the Empire feared most. A small smile touched her lips. Kailor Jar laughed at my research because he couldn't imagine a power that wasn't destructive. He never understood that creation requires far greater strength than destruction. Beyond the viewport, the stars continued their ancient burning, indifferent to the struggles of the civilizations that lived in their light. Ariel Lysander, scientist, destroyer, creator, watched them with new understanding. The equations that described their birth, life, and death were the same equations that had brought down an empire and ignited hope across a sector of the galaxy. In the heart of every star burned the truth she had always known, that knowledge, properly applied, was the greatest power in the universe. And unlike empires, stars endured.